The I Am Rapaport app is available for free download on all Apple and Android platforms. Once the app is downloaded, go to IamRapaport.com and click the Get It Now tab to sign up for premium access. Listen to me. Tuesday and Friday episodes are free on the app. Premium access gets you all the primetime Wednesday, emergency, and archive episodes, plus exclusive videos and bonus content. What, you don't have premium access? Here is what you missed. Here I am alone in the gloom tomb. Game 7. This is why I podcast.
Hi, I have Meta World Peace on the line.
5 minutes, right?
5 minutes, 2 questions for the great Brian Scalabrine. Today, we're going deep to celebrate the great James Brown. Steven Jackson, how you feeling, my man?
LeBron, he was a rookie. He came and tried to dunk on me, and I have footage of it. I grabbed him and slammed him to the ground, and this wasn't even the playoffs. There's only room for 4 people on the banana boat.
Download the I Am Rapaport app today. The I Am Rapaport stereo podcast live.
You down with Rapaport? Yes, I am. 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 You better tune in, IamRapaport.com. Cause every single podcast, you know he drops bombs. I seen him on set, a seasoned vet with true talent. Catch him on his way to CrossFit, rocking the New Balance. He asked me to do the track cause he know I rhyme elite. But I'm just waiting for the Robert De Niro line of the week. Breakfast of Champions, hosted bagel, cream cheese, and lox. This is I Am Rapaport, the show never stops. You might catch him out in public, stretching his knees. But if you don't listen to the show, yo, wig up please. Wig up please. This is the
I Am Rapaport podcast.
What's up? This is Michael Rapaport. You are now listening to the I Am Rapaport stereo podcast. We got a fantastic episode with special guest, the man who brought my sources are telling me to the mainstream, Chris Broussard, formerly of ESPN, now of Fox Sports 1. We're talking NBA playoffs in real time, the ramification of LeBron James' greatness, and the time he met Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five in Des Moines, Iowa. All that and more on a fantastic smash mouth I Am Rapaport stereo podcast with special guest Chris Broussard, Miles Jordan. Let's get into it. I Am Rapaport stereo podcast. Bring the innovators in. The man who, in my opinion, brought the term my sources to the mainstream. Chris Broussard, NBA expert, hip-hop enthusiast. This is the best time of year to have Chris Broussard on the podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, man. You've blessed my podcast
Of course.
In the Zone on Fox Sports, so I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to the chatter. I'm looking forward to it. I know you got a lot of stuff, a lot of junk to talk. So.
I got a lot of junk to but before I get into like general basketball stuff, this is what I'm curious about. You watch and follow, sports in general, but NBA is your main wheelhouse.
Yep.
This is your time of year. So the question I have, what is the process for you? Now, we're slimming down in terms of the NBA. There's only 4 teams left. There's 2 more series. It's not as intense. What is the process for you as Chris Broussard, the fan first, the critic, the professional, now like 2 weeks ago when in the first round of the playoffs, when there's, 2 games on a night, are you able to, this is like a 3, maybe 4-fold question. Are you able to, number 1, enjoy basketball as a fan? Number 2, are you watching at all as a fan? Number 3, because you watch, you tweet, are you taking notes? Like, what is your process on a full slate of games night in terms of juggling all these things? Because you're a fan first, but now you're a pro, you have sources, you're communicating. What is it like? And how many screens are you watching?
Well, it differs depending on your job. Like when I first, years ago when I was with ESPN as a reporter, a lot of times, for the last maybe 4 years or so, 3-4 years that I was at ESPN, I was actually doing sideline reporting.
Right.
So I would technically
And I
usually
miss you
be
on the sideline.
Sideline reporting was fun.
Okay.
I mean, I'm more happy with my role at Fox.
Right.
But that's one thing that I do miss because that was always fun. And it was intense being in the arena. And so for that, just to give you a little background with that, like if I was doing it with Hubie Brown and, Mark Jones or something like that, in the morning, I would go to shoot around and talk to players, coaches, and just get information that I might use during the game. And then back to the hotel. Then that night at the game, me and the crew, Hubie and Mark, or whoever the crew was, we would meet with both coaches and we get to talk to them. And what was interesting? Like Greg Popovich, who always, is usually tough in an in-game interview for sideline reporters. He was great before the game. He was always, relaxed and just gave you good information and nice. He never really got negative with me, thankfully, when I was a sideline reporter. But you always were like, man, he was great at that point. You just hoping he was that good on the sidelines. But they gave me a tip, one of the Spurs PR guys, my first day with Pop. First time I was doing sidelines with Pop. I said, look, what advice can you give me? He said he hates it when you lead into a question. So let's say, it's after the first quarter and you go, Pop, you guys had 7 turnovers in the first quarter. The ball wasn't moving. He hates that type of leading. Just ask him the question. So that's what I did. I just went up to him and said something like, what are you going to tell your team heading into the fourth quarter? It was a third quarter interview when I did it. And he was good. And I'm not going to name the name, but one of our sideline reporters that was at ESPN with me, he was the same situation about a year or two later, coming in, first game he's going to do with Pop. He's like, man, what advice you got for me? And I told him the same thing. Look, don't lead in.
You told
just
me, lead in with a question. Like
exactly, period. Just get straight to. And of course, he got there. He led into it, with like, Pop, you shot 37%, whatever it was. And Pop went off on him, and it was embarrassing for him. But yeah, so that's what it was like with sideline reporting. I was at one of the games. Now that I'm at Fox, my job, because now I'm an opinionist and an analyst for Fox. So now I really like watch the game. So if it's 2 games, obviously I'm watching both. Early in the playoffs, it was 3. They might have one on NBA TV. 2
Are you
on
watching
ESPN.
them at the same time?
No, it depends on where I'm at. But mostly I might watch one game on TV and then I have one on my computer. You know how you can get, your computer. So that way I'm watching both. Or if one game is huge and I know we're going to talk about that. So say it was the Cavs, whoever they're playing, and the other game was I think these situations, Milwaukee, Boston. I'm focused more on the Cavs game because we're probably not going to talk about Milwaukee, Boston much, if at all. So I would focus on it. I can definitely enjoy it as a fan. That's one of the things I can do. Because when we talk it on opinion shows, Undisputed, Speak for Yourself, The Herd, whatever, you're not generally getting into that specific. There's always a general theme. Right. LeBron's performance, can the team recover from this? So I can watch the game as a fan and enjoy it. But obviously you're always kind of analyzing it. And when you've covered the league and you talk to coaches and scouts so much, you see things that maybe the average person doesn't see. You see the coverages. A lot of times you may be looking at when they're running a high pick and roll, you may be looking at what's going on the baseline. Like are the players on the offensive team cutting across each other, or is somebody else screening on the baseline for another guy? Like there's always other actions going on. It's not just the high pick and roll where the ball is.
Through your years of talking to the Popoviches and the Hubie Browns and the other coaches and the other GMs and the other minds, and I don't want you to single anybody out over anybody else, who are some of the people that like wowed you and woed you and you learned from, like talking to a Hubie or talking to a Popovich in the pregame meetings, that when they talk about basketball, you're like, oh, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Or I just learned a whole other way to look at things or look at a defense. Like, tell me some of those stories and those moments if you can remember, or just the people that stick out when I ask you that.
Well, Hubie, I could listen to Hubie Brown talk, NBA all day. I mean, just
I love it.
Right? Yeah, I don't know if it's just the voice, it's the authority with which he speaks.
But it's the
obviously he's got
decades-
great stories, and he's experience. He told me, when he covered that, or he coached in the ABA and won championships, and he said that they would play, the NBA and the ABA would play these exhibitions. He said the ABA would win 2/3 of the times. 2 out of 3 games the ABA would win. And it's interesting, and I hate to, I don't want to get on your Knicks, but I will say this. When they won their championships, and it's not a slight, it's just what it is. Think about it. They won in 70 and 73. You had a lot of the best players in the world in the ABA too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and obviously Dr. J led the New Jersey Nets to championships.
Right.
You had George Gervin, Moses Malone, Rick Barry, a lot of them in the ABA. So
wait.
glad-
I feel like you're trying to take away what we bear, like what we're hanging on to.
Right.
I feel like that was the lead in.
Underhanded. No, I was going. You know what I was going to say? I'm glad that it hasn't taken away from those championships, because you're right. Like when you say the Knicks won it in 70 and 73, nobody ever says, yeah, but the league was wired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or when you say the Lakers won 33 straight in 72, nobody takes away from it, which is good. And I think today people would take, they're always criticizing something.
And also, it was so undocumented.
Yes, yeah, we didn't,
there's no footage.
Know that.
Like there's barely any ABA footage.
Yep.
There's barely any footage of the 1970 championship. There's barely any footage of the 73 championship.
Yep.
I don't know the exact point when things started being documented and kept. But, when I did When the Garden Was Eden, that 1973 game 5, I believe, versus the Lakers, it was gone for years, and then somebody found it. And if you look at like the way it's reported on NBA channels or even in the documentary, it was like off of somebody recorded the television, and they didn't VHS it. I think they were videotaping the television. That tape was lost, and then someone found it. It was given back to the NBA, and that's the only footage. Sad.
It is sad. Well, and
it wasn't like covered in New York like that. That's like a sad championship because it happened in LA. It was broadcast late.
Was it on tape?
And it was live, but it was like, it was late in New York. There was no highlights, and it was like Earl Monroe. There was a sadness to that championship. Who else besides Hubie, like, does it stick out where you like, I just would love to, like, this guy, anytime I get a chance to, like, listen to him tell stories?
Yeah, well, I go back to when I covered the Knicks for the New York Times, and, you're talking to Jeff Van Gundy every day.
Right.
So obviously Jeff has great wisdom about basketball. What's interesting is that the Jeff Van Gundy you see today on the broadcast, who's hilarious with Mark Jackson and Mike Breen, you didn't get to see that Jeff when you covered the team. He was just always serious,
right?
Stressed. Yes. I mean, he was stressed. He took the losing so hard, and with Jeff, everything was like a moral dilemma. With the team, like, I mean, they weren't that great. They were, they were a playoff team. They were okay, but they could go lose to the Kobe Shaq Lakers. And Jeff was like, we just didn't want it. We just didn't work hard enough. We got, that was how he got guys like, which I guess makes sense because you never want your team feeling like we just aren't good enough. We can't do it. He would always see, look, if we do what we do, we're going to win. Even if we're undermanned. And so every loss, that to him, that's what it was.
By the time he left as a New York Knicks coach, you were like, yo, I hope this guy makes it. He looked beaten down. He had those crazy bags under it. I don't know what was going on with his hair. He just looked like, I want, like he just, you had to like, this has to stop.
To that point, because obviously he coached after that in Houston.
Yeah. But the Knicks ran him into the ground.
No, the Knicks was terrible. And just coaching in New York, the pressure of the media.
And coming so close. But it's like even when we were close, we knew it was far.
A little bit far away. Like y'all got to the finals, but you were undermanned. It was Robinson and Duncan, you were facing. But Jeff, he's obviously, toyed with going back into coaching. Sometimes his name is mentioned as a possibility. And I've always said, look, whatever makes him happy, I hope he does, and whatever he wants to do, great. But I've always felt like, man, I hope he doesn't go back.
Don't go back.
Because
Right?
he just seems so much happier.
I totally agree.
You know what I mean? And I guess, look, if something's in your blood, it's in your blood. But I have felt like for him, for his sake, his health, man, just stay in the booth. Also, when I was coaching or when I was covering Van Gundy, yeah, right. Thibodeau was on that staff, Tom
Right.
Thibodeau. So a lot of times
The
you
Knicks
talk
staff.
to, you talk to the assistants and you just get knowledge from them. So who knew Thibodeau would become such a great coach, but you're just talking to him, learning the game.
Dude, when like somebody like Thibodeau, when he was assistant coaching those Knicks teams, did you get a sense that he had a mind like that he was special, or were you just getting like information? from him?
Honestly, I wasn't even thinking that way. I was just getting information, just learning the game. Talking to him about different strategies. I can't remember specifics at this point, but just different strategies, different players and stuff. But now I can't. I'd be lying if I said I thought, okay, this guy's going to be a great head coach, And it was interesting when he went to Boston and he was on Doc's staff, and Doc, like, what I can't remember the reason. I don't know if it was suspension or whatever, but occasionally he might have to miss a game, and Tibbs would take over. Maybe even if Doc got ejected or something.
Right.
And a lot of people in Boston thought Tibbs was going to be a disaster as a head coach. Remember, Boston didn't even offer him, I think when Doc left, or it was, I can't remember the specifics, but Boston didn't offer him a job.
Right.
I think when Doc left or whenever it was. But obviously, I mean, he was tremendous in Chicago. He was a lot like Brad Stevens.
Right.
When he was winning with an undermanned team. Obviously, Derrick Rose was great, but even when Rose got hurt, he kept winning at a high rate,
You obviously were a fan growing up of basketball. You played, and all your, going through the ranks of covering basketball. How much more about the business of basketball do you understand? Like, I mean, and you're a holder of secrets. You have relationships. Yeah. You know people. Like, how much of that is like, was it like a whole door? Like, yo, I didn't know this was
all this going on. Yeah. Because as a fan, you
the drama, the
tend to,
pettiness,
yeah,
the beefs, the not beefs, who likes who doesn't like who doesn't like, just all the stuff that that you're probably desensitized now because you've been doing it for so long. But like when you were younger, when you were like, this is crazy. You know what I mean?
You tend to just, as a fan, think of just the sport and what's going on.
You see what
the court.
I
think the first thing I have to say, and you probably seen this because you've had courtside seats, that's the first difference, is generally when I would go to a game as a kid or even an adult, I was up high. Right. And you're not down on the court. Then once you start covering a team and the NBA, you're down on the court. When I covered the teams as a beat writer, Cleveland, New Jersey, and the Knicks, we used to sit courtside. Now they put the media up a little bit so they can sell those seats. But we would sit courtside. So that's the first thing, is just seeing how big, how athletic, how physical the game is. You see the trash talk. It's just a different game than seeing it on TV or high up in the stands. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing that hit me. But then, the business of basketball, obviously, you just got the salary cap. And, because a lot of times fans talk about the game and trades that should be, and trades wouldn't even work under the salary cap wise and stuff like that. It's just like everything else. Like you're dealing with human beings. So you're dealing with egos, you're dealing with personality, conflicts. You're dealing with scandals, players messing around with the same woman, coaches messing around with women they shouldn't be messing around with. Right. And that takes a toll.
You're getting privy to all this.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a story. I'm not going to name the name.
Give me a story. You can give me as many stories without naming names. Yeah. Give me something good.
All right, so...
Carmelo. Kobe Bryant.
If I name this name, you would know the guy.
Okay, go.
All right, so this player Now he was drafted, big
Derek
time
Fisher.
player.
No, I'm just going. I'm not going to do it.
Would have been a lottery pick.
Okay.
But he was drafted before they had the rookie scale. So now when you whatever slot you're in, your contract is set.
Right.
Before that though, before the salary or not the salary cap, before the max salaries and the rookie scale, rookies were coming into the league demanding big money or they wouldn't play.
Right.
You know? So this guy was drafted, would have been what's now a lottery pick, and he was haggling. He and the team were haggling over the contract, right? So finally they settle and they get a deal. I don't know if it was right before the season started or beginning of the season, whatever. But so they have this big press conference for the media and everybody, and you got the president, the GM, the coach, the agent, and the player all on the dais. Everybody's, it's a happy day. Mm-hmm. Everything's great. So the general manager is, talking about the player. Yeah, we're so excited to have him here, and he's going to be this and that and blah, blah, blah. Just praising him, right? Mm-hmm. So then he introduces the player. So the GM is at the podium standing. Then he introduces the player. So the GM starts walking to his seat, and the player gets up and he's walking to the podium, and they cross paths, and they shake hands and hug, And as they're hugging, the GM whispers in the player's ear, who he's been praising, as soon as I get a chance, I'm trading your ass out of here.
You caught that?
I didn't know. Nobody knows. The player told me years later that the GM said that. And so he was like, man, that he was praising me. And obviously the media didn't, because he said it like
slick
in a way everybody else couldn't see it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's one example
I got
of some of the business of basketball that goes on. But it's a lot of stuff between players and teammates,
right.
Between
you would
front
be privy
office.
to.
Yeah, you get some. I mean, obviously we don't know everything that goes on, but yeah, you hear some of it. And like you said, a lot of it you don't report. There's a lot of stuff that you just don't report. One, because it's
it's too much.
Yeah,
it's too much for us to handle. It's like we think as fans we want to know, and you're like, you don't want to know. Like just a little bit I know, or players have told me stories, or guys that don't play anymore told me stories. I'm like, this is. There was one time I was with a few players that don't play anymore, and they were telling me stories. And I was like, and they were tripping out off me because they know I'm a fan, and the person that was telling me the story, it was Rick Fox was telling me a story, and I've known him for so long. He was like, "You're bugging out, right? Like this is bugging you out, right?" Because he knows. And I was like, this is crazy." Oh, yeah. And this is just a little drop. Now
I've heard of there's big trades that were made for personal reasons,
right?
Whether the player was in either organization thought he was in some trouble, or he's mixing with the wrong crowd, or he's messing with an owner's daughter, or whatever it might be.
Christ.
And they trade him out of there. Or I've heard trades of like a player wanting to be traded because his teammate was messing with his woman, or just all types of stuff that goes on outside of basketball. Now today, some of that stuff happens today, but now it's such a big business that I think probably more so than in the past, that stuff, while it happens, it may not get in the way as much.
Yeah.
Because winning and making the money is such big business now.
Yeah. And the players they're more business savvy because of everything that's come before them, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. I mean, we like it as fans. But the fishbowl that these guys live in, just since you've covered the game, the Instagram, what might be a Wednesday in Utah for Russell Westbrook, James Harden, LeBron James, or any star, a post game, in the locker room, quick interview could turn into a national school the next day.
Well, think about it, and this is one thing I have to credit LeBron James. The scrutiny he's under.
Oh, it's insane.
It is nuts. Like, just Undisputed, Skip and Shannon. They talk about LeBron every single day, Monday through Friday. So that's the one thing where
Every breath he takes on the podium.
Yes.
Forget what he's
you
playing.
mentioned Utah. A Tuesday night in Utah in January is discussed like it's the BCS championship.
Yes.
So with Michael Jordan, who I do think is the greatest player ever, I think LeBron's second. Jordan didn't have to go through that.
No, because we didn't have the technology.
No, you didn't have sports debate shows, right? You didn't have 24/7 radio stations,
You
sports
didn't have
talk radio
cameras
stations.
every single place.
No, you didn't have social media and stuff. So we don't really remember Jordan's 6 for 22 shooting nights or the missed shots at the end of the games that Michael may have had or just the bad performances or whatever. We only remember all the great stuff. And with LeBron, we are seeing and dissecting and analyzing the good and the bad. So
And the
it's
good and the
incredible.
bad of what he says, the good and the bad is that he makes eye contact with the report. It's a lot.
You're right, and everybody is in the psychoanalysis. Oh, he meant this. He tweeted this,
It's a
so it
lot.
meant this. And a lot of times we don't have any idea.
Yeah.
But everybody makes their opinions on it. And I've thought about that with Kobe. Like Kobe came into the league at 17 and left at, what was he, 37, 38, whatever. He literally grew up in front of everybody. And you were young as an actor, so you can relate to it somewhat. But I think of the changes.
People usually call me the Kobe Bryant of acting, but
Really? Hey, take it, man.
I'm just playing.
Yo, you were dope in higher learning. I say that. No. But think about the changes you went through as a person from 17 to 37.
And none of it was caught on Instagram.
That's the thing. Like, and a lot of times people will say, well, so-and-so's changed or he's not what he used to be. Well, of course we've changed.
Right.
You
should want him to change.
Yes.
You should want him to change, hopefully, for the better.
Yes,
and
yes.
grow and, have different opinions and evolved opinions and evolve the way you think about things. Going back to the personalities and the players, I asked you you said Hubie, you said Popovich, you said Van Gundy. Out of the players that you've covered, when you've gotten to talk to them about a game or post game or pre-game or, however you've interacted with them specifically about basketball, who are the ones where you're like, forget on the court. It could be a Manu Ginobili, like where you like, but like when you're talking to them about basketball, you're like, this guy is able to articulate the game in a way that inspired you or like impressed you.
Yeah. I mean, I think the obvious one for me is LeBron. I mean, he knows the game so well and, matchups and his memory. I mean, you saw it a little bit the other night.
Yeah.
When he recalled like the first 2 minutes of the game against Boston or whatever. His recall, his knowing basically what everybody on the court should be doing. Certainly everybody on his team.
Yeah.
And what everybody on the other team was doing. Just over the years talking to him about things like that.
You weren't
certainly
surprised when you
impressed.
saw him recite the
No. I mean, because you just, in talking to him over the years, I've seen that. So he stands out the most as far as let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys. Who was a good guy, and you probably saw us living in New York and just reading the stuff. Latrell Sprewell was always interesting.
Low key, especially when he got to New York, because he was
great in New York.
He was the spokesperson, and this was after the PJ Carlissimo, and you'd see him after the games, you'd be like, oh, this isn't the guy, like they would go, because Pat wasn't talking. Mace and Oak weren't talking. And Latrell was really good. Underrated and underappreciated, I think.
Yeah, he was great because he was intelligent.
Yeah.
He was well spoken. It's funny. And look, for the media, he was great. Like after practice, we got him every day, and he was great. He'd give you whatever you needed. But away from the facility, which I get, but he was just like, this is my time.
Right.
So one time I needed him for something. So we were in San Antonio. Actually, I don't even know if I was with the team. I think it was preseason. But for some reason, I had to talk to him. So I called the hotel where the team was at. And, I don't know if I asked for him or what, but I got the phone rang, in his room. I think it was his hotel room. So I think it was him that picked it up because the guy sounded exactly like him. And I'm like, yeah, can I speak with Latrell? This is Chris Broussard. And he sounded exactly like him. He's like, oh, he's not here. This is his brother, And I talked to his brother before, and I don't think it was his brother. It was
That's
Latrell.
funny.
But yeah, and then other stories, you may have heard stories about players using all types of aliases.
Yeah.
When they check in the hotel. I've had players tell me that sometimes they'll get into a city for a game, the night before, day before, whatever. And they got messages on their machine from girls, women they don't know. 6 messages from women. Hey, I'm so-and-so. You don't know me, but I think you're cute. Let's hook up. Just all types of stuff that these guys deal with. And here's the thing about NBA players, too. They have a ton of free time, man.
Right.
I mean, because you think about, you're 20, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, whatever, and you have practice for, say, 2 hours, that might total 3.5, 4 hours maybe of your day, and then that's it.
Right.
So maybe from, you were up at the facility from 9 to 1 or 9 to noon.
Right.
And then you literally have the rest of the day.
Right.
To just do whatever. You got money to burn. Right. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot that you can get into.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of traps out there for these guys,
It's crazy. It's crazy. When you would say, you don't use the term as much, when you would say, sources have told me, who the hell were your sources? Were you talking about players? Were you talking about GMs? These imaginary friends? Is this cast? So when you would say sources, because that was something that I always was like, what is he talking about sources? Like, who are his sources? And just the way you would say it and phrase it. And you always seemed like you were having so much fun doing it. So when you were saying, so who the hell are the sources?
Sources, it could be anybody. Okay. I don't want to say anybody, but sources could be, there's times I had an owner of a team be a source. And, the general rule in journalism has always been, get at least 2 sources, before you go with something. But there were times when I had it from the owner that a trade was going down or whatever, and I would just go with it because I knew it was the owner. You know what I mean? And we had a good enough relationship where I knew he wasn't BSing me.
There ain't no other source you need.
Exactly. So it could be an owner. It could be an executive, president, GM.
A coach?
Could be a coach. Could be a player or any of the... But here's the thing about players. Now, players will know about things like the locker room climate, how the players feel about the coach, or how 2 players feel about each other, or a fight in the locker room or in practice. They'll know stuff like that. Players generally don't know trade stuff. They're coming to you a lot of times.
They want you to give you their sources.
Yeah, what you heard, what you hear. So they don't know about any of that.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying it could be different people for different stuff. Other times, good sources have been friends of players. Because a lot of times, like a coach might, let's say there was a fight or brouhaha in practice, a coach is going to tell the players, look, don't say anything to the press. Mm-hmm. Because before I started covering the NBA, and I started covering in 95, so up till maybe, I don't know when they changed, maybe 93-ish, somewhere around there, but the practices used to be open to the media. So you could go and watch the entire practice.
Would you do it?
I would have. Now, when I got into the league, 95, that was over.
Oh, they shut it down.
They shut it down.
Okay.
You used to get you might get 10 minutes at the end of practice, and by then they're shooting free throws.
Right.
So you really, and then you get the coach, and then you end up.
I got
you. So we generally, my whole time covering the league, we rarely, ever got to see any real practice footage, or stuff going on. So, and I was talking to Mike Fratello, who was the first coach I covered when he was coaching the Cavaliers. And we were talking about why that is,
He's a great person to talk ball.
Yeah, Fratello was great.
Ridiculous, right?
And he was a great coach, too.
I loved him in Atlanta. He was nuts. When I was a kid, he had the little fro, too.
Yeah.
He was another one who used to get straight. You're like, yo, chill, man. You're nuts.
Mike would get hyped on the sidelines, and in practice and everything. But he he was saying that, look, he said, if I let you into practice, he was like, I wouldn't generally mind. I mean, it's fine. But he's like, if you're in practice and two of my players get in a fight and you're watching, are you going to report it? I'm like, yeah, I got to report it. I mean, that's a big story, He's like, that's why we don't let you in practice. Because he's like, 9 times out of 10, it's not that big of a deal. He says it happens, whether it's a full out fight or, guys yelling at each other
right.
and then they get up in each other's face or people hold them back. And he says most times it's nothing. Mm-hmm. And they'll make up that evening in the locker room, wherever, and it's not even a big deal. Mm-hmm. But once you write it, the headline is, Johnson and Brown got into it in practice. He said, now it becomes a big, huge distraction to my team. Now it becomes a story where, and I could relate, because when I played ball in college, I almost got in a fight with a guy. We had teammates almost getting fights. And later, like me and this dude squared up. We talking trash and we about to fight. And later that night, we were in the bar having a drink together, chilling.
It'll hash out by itself.
Exactly. It's totally
But when you
no
get a
big
story,
deal.
it's flaming.
Yeah. And then, you ask now, so let's say that headline's out there. So now after practice, we're asking each player, so what happened? And we asking other players, and they got to talk about it. And generally, especially in New York, they're not going to believe you when the players say, oh, it's no big deal. Now it's going to be written and talked about there's bad blood between these two guys. And it might not be anything, but going forward, if there's anything that might be related, one of the players has a bad game or one of the players, they yelling. Like you see it a lot now when a player and a coach or two players are yelling at each other on the bench. That happens sometimes in sports.
Right. It happens in the workplace.
Yes. But we blow it out of proportion. Now, sometimes it really is something.
Right.
But most times
and you're watching it
not.
Over and over on every page. And this
you're talking about on every TV show.
Right.
So it becomes a big deal. But so the coach may say, don't say anything to the media.
Right.
Or the players even just on their own, no, look, don't say nothing. We ain't going to say nothing. But they may not come out and tell the media. But guess who they going to tell? They boys.
I got you.
So on the way home, yo, man, you won't believe it. So-and-so, they got into it today.
I got you.
And so if you cool with some of the boys, that's when you can get a lot of stuff.
Those are good sources.
Yeah. So you wouldn't go to one of the boys for a trade story.
I got you.
You wouldn't go to a player for a trade story, but you go to them for certain, other things. So like when I was reporting, nobody knows who this was, but when I was reporting on LeBron going to Miami, like I broke Wade and Bosh going to Miami, and I broke LeBron going to Miami.
You were the first one in.
I don't know. I mean, they were so different then because Twitter, I didn't feel back then that you broke stories on Twitter.
Right.
This was 2010.
Right.
Because my feeling was to break a story, you had the details, you had why, you had what, you know what I mean? Whereas now it's just the headline basically on Twitter. So I know Alan Hahn from, he was at Newsday, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
He had something about it. I had stuff about it. Stephen A. Smith had stuff about it. So we all had, him going to Miami and stuff like that. But I got most of that, like that stuff was from, a friend, of some of the players.
I got you.
Who knew what was going down.
I got you.
And so, you just gotta, a source could be anyway, you gotta make sure they know what they're talking about and they're close enough to know it.
It's got to be a trustworthy source.
And I'll tell you what's interesting, because where you mentioned sources say I kind of became famous for that. I think the biggest time I became famous for that was when it was the show literally where LeBron went to Miami. And I was on with Mike Wilbon. I think
you were on the pre-show with
Yeah. I can't remember who else. Hannah Storm, maybe. I don't know if John Barry was on, but anyway, on that show, I said, because I had been talking the last couple of days about he's going to Miami. And so they were finally like, well, so Chris, what is it? And I said, my heart because I'm from Cleveland. I was like, my heart is saying Cleveland, but my sources say Miami. And that's when it really took off. Interesting story.
That's crazy. I remember that.
Yeah, that was when it really became, okay, so it's interesting story. I would say less than 10 minutes before I go on that show. And again, I've been reporting Miami. A coach calls me from another team, and he says, hey, man, I just heard something like the Miami Herald or one of the Miami papers had a big, they had the LeBrons going to Miami headline on their paper ready to go, and they just recalled it. And he's like, yo, you better check it out, man. I don't know. I think you might be wrong. Like, this is literally right before I'm going on the air. But I was secure in the sources that, okay, it's, I felt good about it.
I had a good source on that too.
That he's going to Miami?
Yep.
So
and it was an unproven source at the time, but like I was like, yeah, right. But where it came from and the source, I was like, and it was the source was right.
Yeah.
When you look back on that moment, and I don't want to go too much down the LeBron, rabbit hole. How big of a shift in the NBA and the way players post the big three in Miami and all the guys that have come after him and all the big threes that have worked and that haven't worked. Like when you said that, like it almost gave me goosebumps because I remembered you saying that about my heart, Cleveland, my sources, and then obviously all the good, the bad, and the ugly and the critics of him going to Miami and then going back to Cleveland. How big of a big bang shift moment in the culture and the way teams are thought about is that? Like when LeBron finally leaves, he's such a force. He's such a incredible player. And, he's had a couple of incarnations of his big threes. Like there's going to be a documentary on that.
Yeah, it changed. Him going to Miami changed everything. And we're not even talking about the championships and all that. If he doesn't go to Miami, I'm willing to say, we'll never know for sure, but I'll say this, Durant's not in Golden State.
I agree.
Draymond was absolutely right. Remember when he said when LeBron was supposedly complaining about the Golden State super team and Draymond after their championship was like, yo, you started it, bro.
Right.
Why? He's exactly right. Like, I don't think Durant feels like he could go to Golden State unless LeBron had done it before.
I totally agree.
So that changed everything in there. Look, a lot of guys it hadn't worked out for. So if LeBron doesn't do that, I don't know. Remember, Melo forced his way out of Denver to New York.
Yep.
I don't know that happens. And in the end, we have to say that didn't work out for Melo. Now, it increased his celebrity. He was already a superstar, but it increased it more so probably off the court.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from a basketball standpoint, it didn't work.
No.
Chris Paul forced his way out of New Orleans.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt him basketball wise, but they obviously didn't go anywhere with the Clippers. They didn't go past the second round. Dwight Howard, that's the worst one.
Yes.
That Dwight Howard ruined his career
by coming to LA.
leaving Orlando.
I agree.
If he had just stayed in Orlando, he'd probably have a statue there one day. That was a good team. I mean, they had made the finals, but it was that grass is always greener. So a lot of guys just, everybody just started getting more ideas about moving on and the grass is greener and, but heck, Darren Williams.
Yep.
In Utah, he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Yep.
And granted, he had injuries in New Jersey and all that, Brooklyn. So maybe he would have started getting hurt in Utah. Who knows? But he kind of forced that move that,
right.
I'm not going to re-sign, so you probably need to trade me or whatever.
Right.
And so a lot of guys, look, there are certain players, LeBron, KD, who are so great. They're going to be great anywhere, But then there are a lot of players who are legitimately great, but they're also in a great system for them. They're in the right place for them.
And they're not aware of it.
Nah, they don't recognize it.
All right. We're at the recording of this podcast. The Celtics are up 2 games versus the Cavaliers. Houston is tied with Golden State 1-1. Cleveland versus Boston. Chris Broussard, what's going to happen in the rest of that series? Well, what is your prediction? What is your take on it? And how surprised are you that Cleveland is down 2-0?
My pick was Cleveland in 6, maybe 5 going in. All right, so obviously 5 is out the window. Generally, I like to just stick with my picks, but
You can't stick with that now. He ain't rattling off 4 straight.
Cleveland, first of all, I got nothing but respect for Boston. And Brad Stevens is incredible. And they're literally defying conventional wisdom. Typically, not every single time, but for a team to get this far, conference finals, and be up 2-0, you usually have a superstar. Just look at the other 3 teams.
Right.
Harden and Chris Paul in Houston. Obviously, Golden State's got 4 stars. And then Cleveland's got LeBron. You generally don't get in this position without a superstar. So they have no superstar. That's number 1. Their 2 best players got hurt. That's number 2. Their leading scorers in the playoffs are 20-year-old Jason Tatum, who's the youngest player ever to lead a team in scoring in the playoffs and get to the conference finals.
That's crazy.
Youngest ever. 20. Your second leading scorer is 21, Jaylen Brown. That's unprecedented. So those are the reasons that Brad Stevens is getting all of this credit, because we've never seen this done before. Mm-hmm. But the players, look, once you get past LeBron, Boston has more talent. Mm-hmm. They got 3 number 3 picks: Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Terry Rozier was a 16 pick. Marcus Morris was a 14 pick, which is lottery. So they've got Marcus Smart was a lottery pick. They have more talent than Cleveland. They're younger. They're hungrier. I compared them the other day to Rocky. Mm. And I know they're more talented, relatively speaking, than Rocky was. But that, Cleveland, LeBron's like Apollo, knocking them, demolishing them, punching them all night, jabbing, hooking, beating them down, and they just keep coming. They keep coming. And I think not so much LeBron maybe, but the team as a whole, Cleveland at this point, they don't look like they got the heart for a real fight.
They looked, right? I compared it to LeBron the other day. Looked like a great, talented fighter who had gotten hurt.
Because what they want to do is, like I said, Apollo, hit you early, hurt you early, and make you quit, and then they can coast. Like Indiana, whenever they would get out to a significant lead, they would start coasting. Next thing you know, they're in a nail biter and they win by 2 or whatever. They don't want, now Toronto just played into their hands because they submitted. Once they hit them, Toronto reminded me of Tyson's last maybe 5 or 6 fights before Buster Douglas.
Right.
Frank Bruno, Carl the Truth Williams, where they were so scared.
Right.
Going in, Michael Spinks.
Right.
That as soon as he hit them, I ain't saying it didn't hurt, but as soon as he hit them a few times, they would go.
Right.
Because they just didn't want to, they were so terrified and they didn't want to fight.
Right.
And Boston wants to fight.
Right.
They're like Evander or Buster Douglas. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
And I don't know that Cleveland really wants to sustain that, to have that type of fight where we got to fight for 48 minutes.
Right.
And I'm going to say this. I would love to see LeBron in the finals because he's LeBron. He's the greatest player in the world and all that. But I got to admit, there's a big part of me that wants to see Boston because I think Boston, I don't think they'll win. They'll be the heavy underdog, but they would make it a better series.
I agree.
Because they would fight. Now, I think they might lose to Golden State in 4, maybe 5, but they would be 4 or 5 hard-fought games. It wouldn't be easy for Golden State.
And the style of basketball, because it would be like they both play like a really nice looking style of basketball.
Yes, and they got players who are versatile, can shoot the 3, can take you off the dribble, more athleticism. Yep, great coaching. So we'll see what happens, but I think, everybody's talking about where LeBron goes.
LA.
You think?
I just think like, I don't think he's going to Philadelphia. I don't think like it's in the plan like I'm going to end my career in Philly. And I love the city of Philadelphia. I love Rocky. I love I love the Roots. I love the sound
Dr.
of
J.
all of it.
Well,
the
see,
sound of Philadelphia. I love all of it. I love
The
Philadelphia.
OJs
All of
and
it.
I think you're forgetting. And look, the Sixers are no comparison to the Lakers. But Philadelphia, for a team that only has, 2 titles, I believe, 67 with Wilt and 83 with Dr. J and Moses, they have a rich basketball history.
Yes.
Because they had Wilt, they had Dr. J, they had Moses Malone, AI, So that's not like going to Charlotte.
No, but I'm saying just for him, like everybody's like LA, he wants to be in film business. I just think he was like, that sort of just popped up. I mean, what do you think? What do you know? You got the sources.
Well, I was having a conversation with somebody that would know 2 weeks ago. And I was saying, we were talking about different possibilities. And I was saying, because I was really not into him going to Philly. Because I was like, man, I don't want the ball being taken out of Ben Simmons' hands.
Right.
Because first of all, Ben can't shoot. And secondly, he's a great point guard. I think he's, is a great point guard. That's where he's a true point guard.
Growth.
Yes. And I was like, if LeBron goes there, he's going to take the ball. And it's just, like you said, it's going to disrupt his growth. And I said that to this person. I said, I don't want LeBron taking the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands. And this person said, well, LeBron actually wants to play off the ball. I was like, he ain't never played off the ball in his life, including high school and probably AAU and all that. And they said, well, that's because he's never had a teammate that makes plays for other people. Now, Kyrie and Wade, they brought up, they were playmakers more so for themselves, occasionally for somebody else, but mainly for themselves. Great individual scorers and playmakers for themselves. But they said if he had a teammate who would, was great at playmaking for others, LeBron would gladly play off the ball. And I said, I still have my doubts, but I said, if that's true, if he wants to play off the ball and will play off the ball, to me, it's a no-brainer.
That he's going to go to Philly.
Well, that he should go to Philly. I don't know what he will do, but he should go to Philly. Here's my thing with the Lakers. And obviously, if he goes there with Paul George, they would be great. But it's hard to say they'd be the favorite in the West.
Right.
And
they'd be really good,
They'd be really good. My feeling is if he goes to the Lakers, obviously he still wants to win wherever he goes. But winning is not the ultimate priority. Like, that wasn't the main motivation for his decision. It's just he wants to be in LA. Like you said, maybe businesses, although obviously he's a mogul already.
Right.
But maybe it's he just wants to live in LA, or he thinks he can do more business out here, life after basketball, whatever it might be. If he stays in Cleveland, obviously winning is not the ultimate.
He's not staying in Cleveland.
I almost think even if he wanted to stay in Cleveland, if winning is number one, he has to leave.
He's not staying in Cleveland.
No, because they don't have, they're not going to. So I think, look, this is what I say about Philly, man. Look, if he goes to Philly, he could lead. I think they have the formula to win championships. Because the thing that gives Golden State trouble is size. And they would have size that's versatile. They got some shooters. They couldn't mess with Embiid. You go with that little Hamptons 5 against Embiid and see what happens. So I think, and you'd have LeBron. I think they'd have the formula to beat the Golden State. So let's say LeBron, in the next 3 years that he has as a top 5 player in the league, could lead them to a championship or 2, still is the best player. Then as he begins to age and Embiid and Simmons mature, they might be able to lead him to another title or 2, or who knows. So let's say, because I've said this, and again, I think Jordan's the GOAT. But if in that scenario, in 10 to 15 years, or any scenario where LeBron wins a few more rings, he will be recognized as the GOAT. And this is why I say it. Because
I agree. I can't.
Unless he has to win a lot more for me to recognize him as that above Jordan. But we won't
Win a
our
lot more
generation.
championships?
Yeah, a few more at least. Like, I mean, if he could somehow win it this year, that'd be huge.
He ain't winning it this year.
Exactly.
There ain't no way
That's
now.
asking the impossible.
I mean, I was last week. I was more like I wouldn't have said that.
But now, yeah,
He's a human being, man. He can only do
right.
so much.
Even if they get there, they're gonna
and he
get
was
demolished.
sick in those first 2 series.
Yes,
Sick.
yes. So, but here's the thing: because you know this, our generation, we look at Jordan as the GOAT.
Right.
The generation before is like, I've talked to Oscar Robertson, even Jordan's generation, Clyde Drexler, guys like that. They don't see him as the GOAT. Now, they don't diss him. They respect, he was incredible. I don't know if anybody's better, but they're not necessarily putting him ahead of Kareem or Oscar
Right.
or Wilt or,
Right.
whoever from there. So it's our generation that undisputedly recognizes him as the GOAT. We won't be driving the conversation in 15 years.
Right.
It'll be these millennials,
Yeah.
a lot of whom already think LeBron is
Yeah,
better.
it's because of also like in Jordan's generation, they're looking at almost like through the youth. It's like like when you hear like music, it's like it's not just the songs. It's like when you were hearing it, you were with this girl, and it's like you heard it on a record. So there's a sentimentality.
Yeah, you're right. It's like hip. Nobody from our generation is generally gonna say Kendrick Lamar is better than,
Right.
Rakim
Right.
or whoever, just
Right.
because that was our generation. So think about it, in 15 years or 10 years, if that scenario with Philly works out, let's say I won't even go overboard. Let's say LeBron's got 5 rings, okay? 2 with Philly, whatever. So the millennials will look at it and say, okay, he's got 5 rings, the one less than Jordan, but he was in twice as many finals as Michael Jordan. He's got almost all of the individual regular season records, almost all the individual postseason records.
It'd be hard to argue, man.
Yeah, they would be like, what is?
It's hard to argue now because he's the records and the numbers and the length of the career and it's such a tough argument because of it's a team sport. He's closed.
Yeah.
If he ain't better, he's in the conversation.
Oh, he's definitely in the conversation. Like the one thing, there's a couple things you can say for Jordan, but one that I say is, because we can debate which era is better or the different styles of play, and that's tough. But Jordan, once he started winning, not early in his career, once he started winning, nobody else ate.
No.
He kept Hall of Famers, Barkley, Ewing, Olajuwon, Shaq, Clyde. Like, he kept all these guys from eating. He had it on lock. The same way LeBron is locked down the East, Jordan locked down the whole league.
Yeah, no, he shut it down.
Now, cats are eating in LeBron's heyday.
Right.
Old Duncan ate, right?
Right.
Dirk ate.
Right.
Steph and KD are eating. And
D-Wade
Steph even
ate.
before KD got there. Wade ate. Like,
Paul Pierce and them ate.
yeah, LeBron is not letting people eat like Jordan did.
And one thing I will say for all these dudes, not that they wouldn't have adjusted, but this lollygagging to the rim with James Harden, and even LeBron, it would be different for him because he's a physical dude. Yeah. But this lack of hand checking, you look at these dudes, they got these ultra sick cross, hesitation, blah, 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 blah. The reason why dudes are going skates, the thing about skates, you're slipping and sliding, you got nothing to hold on to.
Yeah.
If you could hand check, you're leaning forward on the defense and you're leaning forward.
Yep.
So you don't have that space to do it. And
Yep.
if you catch me, I'm going to lean forward as opposed to you have no skates. That's why people are falling.
Yep. No,
do you know what I'm saying?
You
I don't give a
right.
crap. It's not that these guys wouldn't compete and Russell Westbrook would be sick and James Harden's skill set and all of them. And I love them. But that rule of not being able to.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't. Guys weren't falling with Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons.
As great as his handle was,
guys weren't falling with all those like Tim Hardaway.
Yep.
I mean, you'd see highlights and stuff like that in AI, but like that started. It just like now everybody's making dudes fall because you can't touch them.
Yep.
LeBron goes right to the basket, and you can't veer him out of the way because you literally can't touch the dude.
Well, to your point, even once you beat your man, because the floor is so spread out. Once you beat your guy, you might have one guy left at the rim.
There ain't no Oakley in there.
No.
There's no
and that's
Mason.
the thing. So guys from Jordan's generation are like, can you imagine what Jordan would do under no hand checking?
None.
How much he'd get to the rim, or with the floor this spread out, how much he'd get to the rim? Like when Jordan got to the rim, you had 3-4 dudes meeting him there, and you had to finish.
And like LeBron never had that ground and pound of Detroit.
No.
That and that's not his fault.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the generations, the eras, you say LeBron would have adapted to the more physical play.
All these guys would have.
So he would have been finishing with the contact.
Yes.
But same way, Jordan would have, and Isaiah and all these guys, they would have developed better 3-point shots.
Right.
You just would have had to.
And he may not made it 15 years without injury. That ground and pound.
Right.
Because it's a freak of nature that he's done it.
It's unbelievable, man.
All right. But I don't want to go too deep because you've given me so much gold. Golden State, just give me your prediction. It's 1-1. It's so funny, man. Even watching you, like the narrative changes. All of a sudden, Steph is hurt. The first game he had 18, I think, or he had 20.
18 and 8, I think.
18, 8, and 6.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, he has a bad game. He shot bad. And all of a sudden, he's hurt. It went from they might sweep him to beat him in 5 games
exactly.
to
He's not the same.
Houston played good. And Steph and Golden State didn't play great. They're at home. It's 1-1. They're a very talented team. What's going to happen in the rest of that series based on what we know at the recording of this I Am Rapaport Stereo podcast?
I'm still going to have to stick with Golden
Me
State.
too.
Yeah. I'm glad Houston won because maybe it'll make it interesting. But if you really look at it, Golden State is in complete control.
I agree.
They're going home. If Houston had won the first game and Golden State had won the second, people would be saying, oh, it's over in 5 or 6. Because they the playoffs,
they figured them out.
Yeah, in the playoffs, what happens is we tend to, whoever won the last game, we tend to think is in control of the series. Unless it's a 3-0 series or something, 3-1, whatever. So we overreact to each game. I'll say this, a couple things about Steph. When Durant first went to Golden State, and that first year they had together, which obviously they won the championship, played great.
Which was just last year.
I
mean, when he left, and all the scrutiny
doesn't
of that,
seem like ancient history now,
it seems
right?
like, was that 3 years ago?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Durant, this is like his second playoffs with all the
you're right.
cupcake. It seems like it was so long ago.
It really does. It really does. But I was looking at it last year, like there was a part of me that was like, man, he took away. Because Steph there's not the need for, remember the 2 years Steph won the MVP? It seemed like every other game, it was some freaking ridiculous stuff he was doing. A buzzer beater from 35 feet, a shot from 40 feet, 45 point, it was like ridiculous stuff every other night. And we didn't get to see that as much with Durant there. And I felt like, man, because remember, now Tim Legler, I think, is one of the best NBA analysts in the world, right? But Tim said something that this was when, I don't remember if it was his first championship or in the 73-win run or whatever, but Legler was like, I think he could be a top 3 player of all time. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was an overstatement, but that's the type of stuff people were saying. I mean, you had to
It was so trippy watching him.
If he had a 6 or 7 year run like his 2 MVP years, he'd be top 10 easy.
Yeah.
And maybe you are talking top 3, something like that. And I said, you know what? He's never going to have that because Durant is there now. And so he'll win championships.
His size. He's never dominating a game like LeBron or.
And see, that's what I had to realize.
Michael's 6'6".
Yeah, he can't. I don't think physically Steph could have held up long enough. He's already having trouble staying healthy now.
And he's not a triple-double machine. He's just...
No, he just... And so that I actually think Golden State, believe it or not, did need Durant because Steph would not have been able to sustain it physically.
That's a good point.
To stay healthy enough. And so... but the one thing that's bothering me about Golden State in these first 2 games is I think they've been too KD-centric. Mm-hmm. Like they're not. Last night it wasn't that free flowing ball movement, player movement offense. It was Durant bringing it up, Durant going ISO, him creating everything, and they can still win that way because they got so much talent. But they're not special that way. They can also lose that way. Whereas if they're playing their game where it's free flowing, and Steph's in the flow, Clay's in the flow, Durant's in the flow. That's when they're unbeatable.
Is that Houston's defense? I'm sorry. I mean, it was like, is that Houston? Like, is that the brilliance of Houston's defense, or is it just you think it's just like kind of a bad habits for the first 2 games?
Well, I think that Golden State played that way when Steph was hurt. Okay, because they did. They played it through KD because they had to because it was a different personnel. And I think what happens is when Clay or Steph, or maybe just Steph. But when one of them or both of them don't have it going,
right?
When either Steph or both of them don't have it going, I think it has become a crutch. Well, KD, let's go to him. You know, they don't have it going, let's go to KD because he's, you know, he is what he is. He's awesome.
And he's like all the guys we've mentioned, it's like his game is so, like he's never going to be the highlight of the night. You know, you could show accumulate. He's so understated in a way.
Yes. Yep.
You know, there's no dunking. There's not crossovers.
Yep.
It's just nasty.
It's just that mid-range, old school. I mean, it's in some ways, remember Bernard King?
Yeah.
The mid-range, the old jump, like somewhat. I mean, obviously there's differences. His handle's better, Durant. You know, he's better. There's no question than Bernard King. But that mid-range jumper, he kills you with it. It's unguardable.
And you're not going to show it. It's not going to be the highlight of the night.
I think they're better when they don't feature Durant, but they include Durant.
I know exactly what you mean.
If any one player should be featured, it should be Steph.
I agree.
Not because he's better. Durant's the better player, but just because his style everybody gets going when Steph, you know, is featured.
I agree.
So that's where this is interesting. I would love to see Houston win one in Golden State, and then we really got a series.
Oh, listen, I don't know how much I could take. All right, I'm gonna do. I wanted to talk more hip hop, but we got so deep into dope basketball. I'm gonna throw a couple of hip hop questions, and then I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna do it backwards. It's not your bet. It's not the best because again, it's like
how do you say who's the best?
Yeah. Groups. Chris Broussard's top 5 groups in no particular order.
Okay,
groups.
no particular order.
So you have the groups fresh in your head. You have groups because I'll throw. Okay.
I have to, and this is old school.
Yeah, listen.
But when you look, because one thing we can talk about this. When I've looked at, like you said, it's hard to say who is the freaking best rappers of all time, right?
It's so preferential.
Yeah. You almost have to say who had an era.
Right.
Who had an era? Like, who dominated an era? That's kind of how so you got Melly Mel, then LL, like as an individual. Then, I mean, Rakim, I don't know if I don't know if he had a full era, but just the wordplay, the way he changed the game. He's in there. Big Daddy Kane was, I don't think Kane and Rakim, when I say they had their era, but they weren't the undisputed rulers of an era.
Because there were so many good dudes.
You had KRS-One, you had Public Enemy with Chuck D.
And LL, like we forget because he's on CSI and he's been so long. Homeboy, you don't want it with him now. I don't care who you are. And you look at the body of work and the songs and the kind of songs and the battle rap. And when that first image of him with the Kango and the shirt, Homeboy was 15.
That's
like
incredible.
He's a child star.
Yeah. That's incredible. You're right. That's another guy growing up in front of the.
He's been famous more years than he has been famous.
Oh yeah. You're right.
He was a
incredible.
Star.
He was the first. Right, with first mega rapper. I mean,
he was like a sex symbol. He was the first. I think. He was the first star like that. I think. I mean, unless I'm forgetting somebody where it was like, what is cross cultural?
The first group. This is not in order, but I gotta say Run DMC because they changed the game. Before them, to me, I look at Run DMC as the first rap group where it was just. First of all, they were so hard, right? Their style with the heavy metal beat samples and the minimalist beat, and like Sucker MCs, it's just a minimalist beat, but that was hip hop. But they were the first to bring that. And they dressed just regular. We got on some sweats, right? And a leather jacket or a Kango. Like, they dressed on their album covers and concerts like they normally dress. So they made it real. Before that, I was in the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 and all that, but they wore costumes.
And they were on that Commodore's funk, Parliament. You know, they were like, because that's what it was from the disco.
It was the
funk
disco,
era.
exactly. It, like, I saw Grandmaster Flash in concert, met them. They were in costumes.
Back then, you saw them?
Yeah, I met. Funny story.
That's crazy.
I got a crazy story for you, right? So I moved around a lot as a kid. So mostly in the Midwest. Believe it or not, I spent 2.5 years living in Des Moines, Iowa. Oh. Okay, so
man,
right. Freshman through halfway through my junior
Detroit,
year.
I was like, all right,
yeah, Des Moines, Iowa, right? Okay, so Grandmaster, we had moved there from Syracuse, New York. So I was all into hip hop, and back then hip hop was regional to some degree. So in Syracuse, I was getting a lot of hip hop that people in the Midwest and the South weren't getting. I love Bug, Starsky, and all that stuff. You know, I was hearing pretty much all the hip hop you got in Syracuse. So we moved to Des Moines, and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 are coming to Des Moines to do a concert. So I'm a ninth grader. My brother's 8th grade. We love hip hop. So my mother's like, yeah, y'all can. So she's gonna take us, right? So she takes us to the concert, and it's Des Moines, Iowa. So it was in a hotel ballroom. We're literally, it was Midnight Star opened up for him. Remember Midnight Star? Of course. We're literally 20 feet from Midnight Star. I mean, it was maybe 400, 500 people in the ballroom. We're 400 feet from Midnight Star. So they perform. Then, you know, Grandmaster Flash everybody's waiting for them to come on. And we're waiting, and it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. Like, what's going on? People starting to get upset. So my mother, who's 4'8" tall, all right? My mother and her friend came, and me and my brother and one of his friends. My mother goes, she says, hold on, y'all stay here. I'm going to go see something. We like, where you going? So she just disappears. 10 minutes later, she comes back, and she's like, come with me, follow me. So we go, we following her. Everybody's pissed in the ballroom. Everybody's like, what the, you know, they don't see us. So we follow her. She goes to this door, knocks on the door, and Melly Mel opens up.
You remember that?
Yes. Oh yeah. Melly Mel opens up, and
we got like a leather pants, and he's shirtless.
He got leather hat on, like a chain. You know,
he looked like some S&M crazy.
Yeah, yes, exactly, right?
Now you would be like, yo, what's up?
Yeah, what? This is crazy. So they let us in. He's like, all right, come on, this is them. So one of my brother's friend with us was white, okay? So they look at him, and they like, he's good. He's part of the family too. And my mother's like, yeah. So she's like, all right. So we all go in. We met Cowboy, Melly Mel, Raheem, Kid Creole, all of them. And it was just, my mother had gone back there and told them, look, my sons love you guys. I know, because they didn't perform because the people wasn't going to pay them. So they were like, so my mother was like, I understand y'all ain't getting paid. I get it, but will you mind if they come back and meet you? So we met all of them, and
that's
then we
crazy.
Left.
And they never performed.
They never performed. We left after we met them. A riot ensued. Cowboy got stabbed in the arm.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
rest in peace, Cowboy.
Right. So
that's a dope story.
Yeah, it was, man, in Des Moines,
Talk
Iowa,
about an Instagram moment.
Yes. That was. I got to give my mom. She was an OG. She
went back there like, we're at least me.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
And you remember the image of Melly Mel opening the door.
Yeah, I
that's
remember
dope. And he was all cock diesel.
Yep, he was cock diesel too.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it was great. So,
all right, Run DMC.
Run DMC. I got to put Public Enemy in there.
Yep. You know, have you had Chuck on your podcast?
No, but I need to, because I've talked to him. We've texted about doing it. Did you have him on? I know he is.
Like he's like, you could have him podcast with him and not talk hip hop. Like Homeboy is like deep in his basketball.
I'm gonna try to get him on, because that's a good idea. I'll definitely hit him up. So Run DMC, Public Enemy. I love EPMD. They're probably not top 5 all time generals.
They were rocking and rolling for a long, and they have hits.
Yep. So I'll throw. Let me put them on the side, man. You got to throw in Wu-Tang.
Yep.
I think just because I would say NWA, but because the way they changed the game, but they broke up so quick, and Ice Cube did his best stuff without them.
I agree.
So I don't know if I'll put. You almost got to though, right? Because the way they changed,
I wouldn't put them as my favorite.
They're
group.
not. No, they're not. I would because I gotta be honest. I really wasn't and not that into gangster rap.
And I'll be straight up. I mean, I've talked about this. I know everything about NWA.
Yeah.
But when I first heard it, I was like, yo, what is this? What is this, man?
Yeah,
First of all, like I think it was, I remember what year it was, but I was like, I was filthy, but I was like, yo, what are these dudes talking about,
Right.
man?
Well,
and the style of rap was so weird, advanced.
The beats were like that first beats that they had.
It was very basic.
Yeah, they were real basic. You right. And I remember, because you're right, like they were talking about smoking cats and killing, I remember being with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and I remember playing NWA stuff for her in awe, because I was like, can you believe what these dudes
I was
are talking
bugging
about?
out off it.
You wasn't hearing people, like you
But
had
they also
Schoolie
were
D
rocking though. Like to me, like the beats.
Yeah.
And it's not this East Coast, West Coast. You're just used to a certain it was just different.
It was different. Nah, and I wasn't. I was like, it's unusual. They talking about killing people like that. It was not
wild.
bad, but yeah, I wasn't really into NWA. So I'm just thinking you have to give them an era, I guess. But I won't put them in it. You got to. Who'd I say? Wu-Tang, Run DMC, Public Enemy.
I mean, there's BDP, there's Eric B and Rakim.
well,
Gangstar,
so we count them
Tribe.
if you count them as groups.
Well, because you have to.
Okay, so I would KRS-One. Is my favorite rapper, like of all time. So if I count BDP as a group, I got to put them
But then
in.
he continued
Yeah,
rocking
he
his-
was, I think of him more as solo, even though they did some great stuff. Eric B and Rakim, you're right. I kind of, because Rakim or Eric B was the DJ and wasn't rapping, I always think of Rakim more as a soloist.
Same with like Gangstar, but
Yes.
But Premier, I mean, that was he had that was a group.
Yep.
Because every beat was made.
Yeah. So I guess for my era, groups, I would say, like I said, Run DMC, Public Enemy, Wu-Tang Clan, EPMD. I wanted to look at the 90s group. Who?
I mean, there was
it wasn't more soloist.
It was Tribe. Where you said Wu,
Tribe,
De La. I mean, there's we're forgetting a whole bunch.
I'm trying to look at. I think you kind of have to put Outkast in there.
They're
have to put Outkast in there.
All right, and then the obligatory top 5 MCs. These are your favorites.
Just my favorites.
These are your favorites. There's no skill level. Just your starting 5 MCs. I'll even give you a cherry on top for the 6th one.
I gotta say, KRS-One. I'm gonna say this isn't in order, but KRS-One, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane.
Love those are
He's underrated, right?
He's ridiculous.
His word, he was. You know who I'm gonna say, man? He made some stuff. I won't say whack, but he made some stuff that wasn't up to his standards.
Okay.
But his best stuff, it ain't hard to tell. Nas is like when Nas was at the top of his game, I don't think.
Or when he is, because
when he is, exactly. When he is at
when
the
he's
top
in
of
the pocket.
I don't think anybody can even, I gotta admit, I don't think even Rakim is as dope as Nas when Nas is at his best.
And the body of work is just, it went on for a little longer.
Yeah.
And that's sacrilegious what you just said. And I'm glad you're the one saying it. But I know what you mean.
Right, I know, because Rakim started it. Without Rakim, there wouldn't have been a Nas.
Without a Rakim,
right?
there wouldn't have been a lot of people.
Yeah, because he changed the whole game with his wordplay and style. But Nas, so I got to put Nas in there. So that's Big Daddy Kane. And look, it's funny because, like you said, sometimes you listen to stuff back then and you compare it to the wordplay to like stuff later, and it might not sound as clever. But I think I have to say LL.
I'm not going to argue
say
with
LL.
him. He's sick.
Yeah, like You'll Rock, which wasn't a big, huge hit, but his wordplay on that was dope. I'm Bad, obviously. Radio. Like
I need a beat. I mean,
Yep,
dear
yep.
Yvette. Like he's got
he
joint
was
after
he
joints
was-
after
his
just
vocabulary was crazy.
different
like,
styles going back to like he
Yeah.
made songs that were straight hip hop, pop.
Yes,
Like
yes.
going back to Cali's a hip hop song.
Yep.
It's a it's a unique
Yep.
hip hop song, but you're listening like he was never like whack. And then
Yeah.
battle rappers, you still don't want it with him.
Nah.
You don't want to wait like the CSI. You might be he's on TNT
Right.
and you don't want it with him.
Right.
Like
So-
he could come out like right now and just shut it
and do
down like
damage.
right now.
Yeah, no question. So I said
You said Kane. My first three is the same.
It's the
Kane,
same, okay.
Rakim,
and KRS-One.
Yeah, those are my three that are my obligatory three.
Okay.
So
who you got?
my
who the other
obligatory
two?
three are those guys, and then my standard list, I would go Hove and Nas.
Yeah.
Those are and
Okay,
then,
so we
and
had
then
Nas.
like Tupac and Biggie, the bodies of work because of obviously their passings. They were so young, 25.
Yeah.
But they still put a lot of work in.
Biggie, look, it's hard not to have Biggie. Like, Biggie was just dope. I mean, from the voice to the wordplay,
The flow.
Yeah, I mean,
The sense of humor.
yeah.
You know, the stuff he was, like
it was unbelievable. Like, if I had to go with an obligatory 6, I mean, Jay-Z, look, I would probably go Biggie as a 6, but I think, you know who else was dope? He ain't in the top 5. Cool G Rap.
ridiculous.
Cool G Rap was crazy. But I think an objective list, because, if you're talking about the best rappers, it's like the best NBA players. You have to go, okay, skills on the mic, record sales, that
Yep.
has to be a part of it.
Yep.
So you can't, like Mos Def said, the best rapper is a local dude, local cat. But that may be true. You got some dudes that's got underground backpackers that got crazy skills. But if you don't make the dopest songs, Cannabis was dope.
Sick.
But he just didn't make the greatest songs.
I agree.
So record sales has to be a part of it.
And songs.
And song, yes, great songs. So all that,
Because it's like otherwise it's like just street ball.
Yeah,
like it's like, but you
exactly.
didn't make it to the pros.
Exactly. So I think an objective look, you might have to have Jay-Z as the best. I don't have him in my top 5, but you were just because he got skills, his storytelling, the topics, longevity, record sales, songs, like you probably got to give it to him in that regard.
All right. Listen, Chris Broussard.
Where we go, like 3 hours?
It was just an hour and 20 minutes, but this was a flamethrower. Sources. You gave me the sources. You gave me the information. You gave me the predictions. I've always told you this. You're my favorite guy talking basketball.
Look,
so to
I know if Stephen A. Smith was here, you'd be saying the same
No,
thing.
I've always said this. I've always said this to you. I've always said this to you.
You have.
I appreciate you rocking me. I would love when the finals are laid out.
During the finals,
whenever
I'm
you
locking
want.
you in.
Lock me
You
in.
you gonna be in LA for?
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here for it.
So-
I'll be through the pleasure and pain.
Okay.
We don't need to talk about my feelings. They're very clear on how I want things to go. I appreciate you coming through on the podcast.
Loved it, man. Loved it.
And you're the dude.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man. This was great. I could go on all day. This has been a great conversation. But thank you for having me. And you'll be on In the Zone in the first or second week of June.
Done.
We'll do it.
Done.
Okay.
All
cool.
right. I appreciate it.